There's something else President Obama's most worried about, and that's climate change. The Pentagon says drastic weather is a threat multiplier for the United States, which makes securing our national security harder than it ever has been. But just how does climate change relate to national security? Let's get some insight by turning to my next guest. Joining me in our WGN studios, retired Brigadier General Stephen Cheney of the United States Marine Corps. He's the Chief Executive Officer of the American Security Project and a member of the State Department's Foreign Affairs Policy Board. General, welcome to Politics Tonight.
Paul, it's my pleasure.
Good to hear. Lots of titles going on with you. So, you know, there would have been a time that somebody would have said climate change is climate change, national security, two separate topics. How have they merged?
Well, let me start up front when you mentioned the weather.
Yep.
It's not just weather. It's things like sea level rise, drought, and they are all influencing stability worldwide. And certainly it's an accelerant to instability. We look at places like drought in Syria, drought in Mali, water insecurity. It's all instigating those conflicts, and that's where we have to be prepared for that.
And when you say prepared, is this about prepared, the security piece is about saving the earth, or is the security piece about protecting our national security?
Well, it's actually both, of course, but when you look at our own national security interests, we're interested where we're going to deploy our soldiers, sailors, and Marines. They have to look at where they're prepared to defend our interests worldwide. We understand, of course, that the world is heating, and that's causing problems here. And, of course, the physical structure of our bases are certainly threatened. With 30-plus naval stations are threatened to go underwater here over the next 20 or 30 years just by sea level rise alone. And we know that's coming. That's not going to be stopped in the near term. So it's got a lot of aspects to it.
So maybe you're wrong because, I don't know, if you watch senators debate, you may remember the day that Senator Inhofe had a snowball on the floor of the Senate. And that was proof positive that there's nothing to worry about. It was winter outside, it was cold, he had snow. What's your worry?
97% of your meteorologists, climate scientists say it's happening. You've got a very small minority to say that, oh no, they're deniers. And the analogy I'll use is you've got a sick child. Not sure what's wrong, but you take them to 100 doctors. 97 say, got to have an operation. 3 say no. I think you'll take them to get the operation. So that's kind of my point. I think the evidence is overwhelming that climate change is occurring. So even when Senator Inhofe holds up that snowball, what you've got here, and you mentioned the weather at the beginning, it does contribute to extreme weather events. Superstorm Sandy, Typhoon Haiyan, which had the highest recorded winds of any storm, any hurricane or typhoon in the world, 195-mile-an-hour winds, 7,000 people killed. 13,000 soldiers, sailors, airmen, Marines were deployed to the humanitarian effort in that particular storm. So that gets back to my point of what's the Pentagon doing to prepare for this. We know we have to prepare for the humanitarian aspects of extreme weather events, and climate change is contributing to that.
I mean, I can remember several years ago we had a storm that our own Tom Skilling once said it was called a once-in-a-100-year storm. Those seem to come every year now.
Much more frequent. I look at the droughts out west, look at the forest fires. You know, they are just becoming almost common. You've got something happening every year now. There was a huge drought in Texas, but now they're being drenched by water. I mean, this is going to come and go, but we do know that everything's heating, that the Arctic is melting, and that's going to contribute. You're going to have now navigable waters up in the Arctic. That's a new Navy mission. We're not prepared to do that. We have one icebreaker. So there's a lot of things we need to do to prepare for climate change.
So, two questions. If we don't prepare for this soon, what happens? And is there any way to move beyond the partisanship on this issue?
Well, frankly, that's part of the reason I'm here. I am not a Republican. I'm not a Democrat. I'm a military guy. And so we're going to preach the national security aspects of this. And I think I come from 30-plus years of credibility on the military security side of the house. And so we want to tell our politicians, hey, look, you can take the political side one or the other if it's popular, but let's look at the national security perspective of this. We need to defend our citizens and our bases and our properties. We need to make sure we're ready. And you're saying long-term, if we don't do anything, our bases are going underwater. Diego Garcia, which is a substantial base that we have in the Indian Ocean, we know that's going underwater anyway. There's going to be instability all over the world. Bangladesh, 1.5-foot rise in sea level is going to cause 5.5 million refugees. We know that's going to happen. It's going to cause a lot of instability. Are we just going to sit back and just let it go? And the kicker is, we know what's causing it. It's CO2 emissions into the atmosphere, and we know how we can stop that. It's getting the willpower to just do that.
And it's a matter of countries working together. Brigadier General Stephen Cheney, thank you so much for your service to our country, sir.
Thank you, Paul.
And for the work you're doing now.
You bet.